Then you have to go through 2 revisions, just one isn't enough. And finally, there's the publication process. So we had to speed up the process for us to be able to catch up and keep up with the software. So there are some changes and some strategies that we took on. And so one of the things is translate the main document once and then do a correction of the translation, and subsequent documentation be reviewed rather than just simply always translating the full document from 100% English back into Portuguese again. It's very expensive in terms of time and effort. So we also, when we do this, we're going to keep and maintain different formats like ODT, PDF, HTML, EPUB for ebooks and stuff like that. So when we update a new version, we can update also our centralized repository, I guess you could call it, where we keep our documents. So with that, all we need to do is review the Portuguese version rather than translate the whole thing from the beginning. So what do we do to speed up the translation part? We actually use an online open source service. We're going to talk about that very soon. We upload the file, ODT file, have the machine translate it and download it. That's simple. So this eliminates also the language barrier that many times could exist when some Brazilian translator isn't fluent in spoken English, or sometimes isn't able to keep up with the nuances of some of the things in English. So machine translation really lowers the language barrier a lot. And it is much better to have an imperfect text than no text at all. So this is one of the things that we've been very emphatic on. Now the big heavy work is revision. So we correct the sentences because machine translation, as everyone knows, is not perfect. It helps a lot, but there are a lot of funny mistakes. We'll see about those really soon. And we also have to really go through a lot of consistency check to make sure that what was translated and what has been translated fits with the software. And after that part is done, which is the bulk of the work we do today, publication. And finally we reach the level of publication. By the time we get there, the hard work has been done. Publication does involve a lot of work on the final revisers. So what do we use? We use matecat.com. Obviously there are others. We're not espousing only Matecat, but we got open source. So that's one of the big things that we focus on, having an open source translation, machine translation. Also, matecat.com does not require you to install any software, so we can do that online. And the process is very simple. Get the original file in English, upload it, have the machine translate it, and download it. Simple as that. We can also add a standard translation member if we want to. We haven't had a need of it yet. And then that translated document can also remain online. We can go back and download that document again if we have to. So it's a nice way to keep a little backup of the translated file. So we maintain the ODT format. It keeps all the styles, all the fonts, and everything, the tags that we have in it from the ODT format. So also, technical English is easy to translate in machines. So there's a very low percentage of errors or a high percentage of correct answers or translations. So that's another advantage of machine translation. Now the big work is correcting the machine errors and translator errors, and that requires, at least for you to be good in Portuguese. So everyone on the team is fluent in Portuguese, and have a good working knowledge of English and be able to compare between one language and the other. So there are a lot of contextual errors that have to be checked. Software elements have names that can confuse the translator, for example. So here are some examples of some of the things we have to correct. In Portuguese, we'd say click on the Organize tab, and it translates clique na Organizar aba, which is wrong in Portuguese. You have to switch the order. Adjectives and nouns are reversed in Portuguese. So clique na aba Organizar. So we have to keep our eye out for that. Some humorous and funny things that happen, and we also have to sometimes stop and really think about what we're reading. Like, for example, bold can mean bold as in a strong font, but bold, as we know in English, can mean audacious. Well, when it translates bold to audacioso in Portuguese, it's just so funny because it has nothing to do with bold font. Then we have deck. Deck can mean a deck of cards, but it also can mean a deck like an extension of your house, in front of your house, something like that. So the word baralho is specifically deck of cards. It has no margin for other meaning. So a lot of times we have to change that. In fact, we've changed deck to painel, which is something more like panel. Works much better in Portuguese, no ambiguity there. Outline. Outline we use for, when we're outlining a picture, when we're outlining a document, stuff like that. In Portuguese, the terms can be very, very different. So when we say, when the machine translates contorno, for example, that has no meaning in the context of outlining a text. Contorno would be something more like on draw, when you're drawing a rectangle or a square and you do a line around that. That line, that perimeter is contorno. So we've had some laughs with that. Also left as in left and right, and not left as in the past tense of leave. So sometimes the machine will misinterpret it and put down deixou, meaning go away. Table, which we use for where we eat on, or also the table on our document. Mesa has nothing to do with tabela. So we have to keep our eyes open for that. And shift, meaning the shift key, which does, in the old times of the typewriter, shift the letters from small caps to upper caps. But in Portuguese, it's totally meaningless. It's mudança means change or transformation. Character, character in a movie, in a book, personagem in Portuguese, has nothing to do with caractere, which is what we're looking for in this document. Break, as in line break, column break, things like that. More the translation sometimes means rupture, like what in the world? And then all of a sudden, oh yes, break, of course. And shift plus N, which is fim do turno, meaning the end of the shift for workers, such as doctors, nurses, and people like that. So that's part of the bulk, and we have some good laughs with that because obviously a machine is not a human, so it can't keep up with all the nuances our brains are capable of as humans. So we also revise and correct for better reading in the target languages, which is in Portuguese. Sometimes it may be grammatically correct, but it doesn't sound right. So for example, the translator might mimic the English language. And so we have to take a look at that, say, hey, this is unnecessary, this is extremely redundant, this sounds weird. So for example, we have this here where already, if the element already exists, we just get already out in the context this happened in Portuguese. So because it's just really not necessary. For example, in Portuguese, the pronoun you is translated você, where many times você is unnecessary because the conjugation of the verb that follows already tells what person it is. So we can eliminate that. Sometimes I use a Control H for você, and I go one by one, check them out, and very rarely do I leave one in. So we also focus on good writing for technical texts, and so that requires that we change sometimes a little bit a few of the terminologies and expressions. Grammatical mistakes are very rare, but they're there, but they're obvious, they stick out. Now the golden rule for this consistency check process is the software is always right. What does that mean? Sometimes we'll find inconsistencies between the documentation, even in its original in English and in Portuguese. So we will go to the software says such and such a thing, the documentation will say another thing, and we will follow what the software says. And so differences with the software will be reported. The interface and help translator on Weblate, we can do like fixed translation errors, context errors, terminology errors, grammatical and linguistic errors. All these can be fixed, and they will also sometimes even serve as bug reports for who knows, even some software mistakes or something in the menu system or contextual errors that are confusing in Portuguese. And sometimes even we'll find English errors or an error in terminology or concept. So one of the nice things about being in a documentation team has been that we are able to help out with some development, not on the level of a programmer. So how does the team being managed right now? So we have a channel on Telegram, instant messaging for quick communication during the week, and we call people to join during the week who are on the team on Papo Libre, which is LibreChat in English, and we use the documentation, Jitsi documentation platform for us to chat. That's our 1 hour a week meeting. We discuss anything LibreOffice, from technical issues to minutia of how the proper hyphen or half hyphen or dash or whatever, these things we've talked a lot about. And we try to keep it an hour. Sometimes we go about 10 or 15 minutes over time. But then, as our friend Tulio always says, let's stop now because we'll run out of subjects to talk about next week, which is a joke, of course. We never run out of subjects, but we'd go too late. But anyways, it's really nice, these meetings on a weekly basis. And some of the earnings we've had, I've learned a lot of LibreOffice on a software level just by reviewing the documentation in Portuguese. It forces me to think in 2 languages and forces me to use the software in a manner that I wouldn't if I weren't doing this. So I learned a lot about styles, formats, advanced techniques, databases, mail merge, security, all kinds of stuff, safety and everything. Chapter, and so each of us grabs a chapter. We put our names on a spreadsheet, and when we're done, we let everyone know, and we check to see if anyone else has got another chapter. If that chapter hasn't been taken, we will take it and move on to the next one. So our knowledge of professional documentation creation has increased greatly. How to organize ourselves, to get tasks done, the assembly of the final document where Olivier sets up the master document and the chapters and everything. Our language expands. Particularly in my Portuguese language, has developed quite a bit just by listening to different ones talking in Telegram and our chats on Jitsi and everything else, IT terminological knowledge and everything. So we get to participate in the development of LibreOffice software with the international team. This is a really nice thing too. We start getting more involved. And of course, teamwork, I mean, what can I say? Teamwork is always the best, So after all of this time, we've done this. Here we have Estante do LibreOffice, which is something equivalent to LibreOffice Bookshelf. And this is, of course, an older picture. As LibreOffice is always updating, the documentation is also. And we have our team here of people, and so basically we have, from this point forward, I'm going to show you here, I'm going to go around this area here. And so we have Jackson Cavalcanti, we have Tulio, we have Olivier, which most everybody I'm sure already knows too. And we have Christina, we have Diego, and down here we have, what's his name? Rafael Lima. This is our roadrunner. His name is Raul Pacheco. He's our roadrunner because he's so fast and he does everything faster than anyone. He leaves us in the dust with his work, so he's well known in our group for that. And we have here Luciana, and then we have Marcia, we have Flavio Schaefer, and we have Vera Cavalcanti, and this is myself here. Everybody, thank you so very much. This has been a great opportunity to be a part of this team, worldwide team, international team of LibreOffice. I've learned a lot and I have so much to learn yet. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and I am open for questions and hopefully I'll be able to answer them. Thank you so very much.
Okay, video is finished. Okay. Hi.
Yes, I have a question for Tim. What is the next steps that that the team is taking in the future?
Hello. So our next step that we're going to be taking is to develop more the documentation in the newer versions. We are going to be not doing a full complete translation, but working on the documentation we have. And I guess I don't know if that answers your question, but I guess that's the answer I would have right now.
Yeah, that is an interesting because since we have eliminated the translation, and one of the things that we have asked upstream is that the new developments in the English documentation, that we get a specific section to indicate the changes in the books, so that we can go directly into the new parts and new pieces of documentation and just translate what is there. It doesn't prevent us to review the full book, but nevertheless, it's a little bit easier for us to update, because we don't want to go through the full cycle of translation. There is no need for that anymore. So the idea is to keep a close look at the developments in the English documentation. And our experience in Brazil, I think it's very advisable to reproduce into other languages. One of the things that it really matters is that machine translation is lowering the barrier, as Timothy said, and it's much easier to get people that are knowledgeable in your language than people that are knowledgeable in two languages. So you can really increase the amount of people participating in the group of documentation by eliminating the language. So this is good. Yes.
Yes, it's true. I've done some translation work, and definitely the machine language translation has expanded much our capacity to save on time and focus on quality documentation.
Yeah.
Any more questions, anybody?
So, room is nothing. Okay, my question. So this is so very interesting talk. Because so Japanese community so also challenges the documentation translation, but so we can not success now. So machine translation is so easy, but so translation quality is not good now. Yeah. So Brazilian Portuguese is so machine translation quality is good or not? But
that's your question about the quality?
Yes, the quality.
Yes. The quality is good. I think one possible thing that helps is we share, English and Portuguese share a similar script system. You know, if my knowledge of Japanese writing system is correct, I think there are 2 or 3 writing systems, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know how that works on a machine translation level, because I know nothing about Japanese language. I mean, very little except. So it has worked very well, because like I said on the presentation there are some small differences, but structurally, you know, Indo-European languages, the script are very similar. There are some just switches around grammatical structures, but the quality is excellent. I mean, I can attest to that. I've been a part of the process. The quality is very high, and I think it's like Olivier mentioned just now. It is something very interesting to check into, and I'm sure the people in Japan who would work on a team like this, who are working on a team like this, would have their own sets of challenges, but I believe these developing, facing these challenges is what helps develop new technology, you know. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know that one of the advantage of using machine translation, especially for European language like Portuguese, is that the amount of vocabulary of the technical English is very shallow. And so there is, although Timothy mentioned some mistakes, the number of mistakes is very low, and the technical English is not a very rich English. So it's very limited in terms of vocabulary, and we pick one or two mistakes, but it's not like translating Shakespeare. Probably the number of mistakes will be much higher. So this is an advantage.
Yes.
Yeah.
To me, machine translation is like a bilingual dictionary on steroids, I guess you could say, with lots of options and capacities. It just enhances our translation capacity. I remember years ago when I would translate from Portuguese to English or vice versa, I would use an actual paper book dictionary, and go through and everything. So it's just an enhancer. To me, it's like a great enhancer. It saves a lot of time for us. And the big work is to actually process the document, compare with the original, compare with the software. For example, I have to have LibreOffice in Portuguese, a second installation of LibreOffice in English to check what the language is in English. So then when I'm doing the documentation review, I'm also doing screenshots and everything. That's what we all do in our team. So it's very interesting. It really pushes us to develop as humans. Even though we're using machines, we are developing ourselves.
Yeah. And now chat room is one question. So, does guide? Sorry, I pasted the chat. So
okay.
Please.
Guide require meeting, or is it possible to split efforts per individuals? Translation. Okay. Meetings are very important, because you have to talk about details. You have to talk about specificities of your target language. So, for example, in Portuguese, there's, like I said, those were humorous examples I gave, or discussions about the hyphen, the dash, the double dash, and things like that. For example, in Portuguese, like on room 1, Rafael Lima was mentioning how the decimal point and the thousandths place holder, they're reversed in Portuguese. Those are just small examples of what happens. So it's very necessary to have these meetings. I would say you can split the individual. We do split them up per individuals, but without the meetings, I don't think the process would work that very well. That weekly meeting, that human bonding that we develop on a weekly basis really makes a big difference for us. It's just necessary. We're not machines, we're human beings. So this part about us getting together on a weekly basis, chatting, laughing together, talking about common subjects, but always our meetings are focused around LibreOffice, and we try to stay focused. Sometimes we'll go off on these small rabbit trails, but that's what adds to the spice of being part of the team. It's not me in my own office working alone. It's human beings bonding together. It's just, I think it's possible, but it makes a big difference when you have these meetings on a weekly basis. That's my answer for that question.
Thank you.
I just want to add something. Yes, the meetings, like Timothy said, is important for the bonding, but also, of course, since we have chapters, and the document can be split, of course, by several, and you can distribute the workloads between several members of your community. So, but of course, there need to be a coordination, and the coordination is rather simple. We expect, for example, that when we pick a chapter for a revision and we put in advance a date, a deadline, we try to honor the deadline. If we cannot honor the deadline because we are all volunteers, then we send a message saying, I'm going to be a bit late, but this is we manage the expectations, and we try to, of course, to be as strict in terms of commitment, which is important for us. So yes, you can split the work into several individuals, but it's good to have a weekly meeting or a bi-weekly meeting just to follow and to keep the work active. Yeah.
I think there's a second question there, if I'm not mistaken, on Telegram. Mind if I read it?
Okay, so copy and paste.
Okay, there we go. Thank you. Have you tried translating complex structure-wise docs such as basic cheat sheet? As far as I know, we're focusing on the documentation right this moment. We're not focusing outside of that. It may be a subject we might bring up. I don't know. Olivier could probably even answer that better than me. But right now, our focus has been the official documentation. Yeah.
I just want to add that these basic cheat sheets, if they are the one that were created by Jean-François and Yves Necker, then this is a very nice piece of work, and it may be interesting, yes, that we get it translated into Portuguese. Of course, its translation, there is a small amount of text and quite a lot of lines of code, so the code is not going to be translated. But yes, this is a nice thing to add. Yes, of course.
Okay, so it's time up now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Timothy.
You're welcome.
Thank you,
Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Great presentation.
Okay.
Okay. And Olivier?
Yes, that's me. Let me try to make it work. I would like to be presenting directly.
Okay, so I will share the movie. Okay, so now time and are you live streaming? Okay.
Yes, I'm streaming directly. Hello, everybody. This is the opportunity I have to present a project that I was carrying together with the documentation group, which is to have the user guides migrated to web pages and to create a sort of a LibreOffice bookshelf that Timothy just mentioned quickly before. And that's it, yes. So essentially, who am I? I'm Olivier Allot. I am the document coordinator inside the Document Foundation. I have been involved with LibreOffice since the very beginning, 2010, and then 2000, and even before, because I joined openoffice.org. And yes, I live in Brazil, in Rio de Janeiro, and it's an opportunity for work with this nice software. What is the proposal is first to talk about the LibreOffice Guide, which is a collection of several books, the need of an online reading of this kind of bookshelf, The issues that I have faced in transforming the ODT files and chapters into what I call a web output, not a file migration, and explain but that is much more than pure file export. How do I achieve the web display of the guides, and how to get these outputs and the resulting of these outputs. So essentially, the LibreOffice guides that we have are true assets. I mean, it's very high quality information. There is a lot of savvy tricks for the users. There is the do's and don'ts of handling Office documents. It's available in PDF and ODT format. It's also available as a printed book. We have a team upstream of about 10 people working actively to update and upgrade the guides. The idea is to have one person that coordinates one of the guides. So we have someone that coordinates the calc guide, another one coordinates the writer guide, the impress guide, and such and such and such. And the community works on the chapters, picks the changes, review the contents, sometimes update the images and the steps to execute given task. And like I said, it's a true asset of the community, because a software that has no documentation, in my point of view, is a lesser software. So if you are going to implement or you want to use software as complex as an Office suite, then you need absolutely to have the right documentation. So I think that we can do more. I think that we can have not only this PDF and ODT format, but also the online reading. I call that the online reading a way to display in your browser. So we want to have these guides in HTML format for easy access from the browser. You point to a given page and then you get your information. Something that is quick to search in the page and also perhaps in the web. And also to be able to display in several form factors, the desktop, tablets, eventually your mobile. When you are eventually commuting in your subway, you may want to have a read on a given task on pivot tables in the calc guide, for example. It's up to you. And we also think that the online reading is a companion product for migration projects. Clearly, have been involved into very large migration projects, and I can tell you that you just don't throw the software on the table, on the desktop of the user. You absolutely need to give him and her information on how to use the software, because it's absolutely not trivial to change the way people are working. And we know that besides the fact that LibreOffice and the competition produce the same results, the way to achieve the results are different, and this has to be documented, and documentation in this case is absolutely fundamental. The LibreOffice Bookshelf idea is an idea to collect all the user guides into a given online web pages, use the browser to display the web pages, update the online with the newest guides, preserve the content of the guides, and be able to deploy in corporate intranets, government offices, school, colleges, libraries, whatever you want. You get these sets of guides quickly and easily deployable, right? Very good. So what happens is that transforming the ODT files into HTML is not straightforward. The ODT and PDF are good formats for books with pages to live through. So you just leave the pages, page 1, page 20, etc. But it's not that good for browsers. So browsers don't have the concept of page. The reading is through a continuous scrolling. You know that because if you read the text in your tablet, you probably will have to scroll. And there is an underexploitation of the modern browsers web resources. So navigation, hyperlinks, search, things that can show in a different way, that turns out the reading experience better in this technology, in modern technology, than currently the old-fashioned books and guides, right, on paper. So changing the formats from ODT to HTML is the least of the problem. That's the easiest part. The real problem is refactoring the pagination. So change the way the information is displayed on your browser. So what we have, to give an example, is that this is the sequence of important parts that we have inside a chapter of our actual user guides. We have on the very top, you have the logo, then followed by the guide name, then the chapter title and subtitle, then we have a section on copyright, the table of contents of the chapters, and the contents then of the chapter itself. So this has to be changed, and we have to execute a change. So I'm showing here a typical chapter of the LibreOffice guides. We have here the logo on the top, then it is followed by the guide name, and then the title, then we have the copyright, then we have the table of contents, and finally we have what I call the display area, but it's actually the real content of the chapter. Okay, so what I have to do is we have to transform this sequence of parts of your document into something that is better for the browser. So we have to shift and shuffle all these sections into others display. So we have, for example, the logo goes to the top left, the guide name to the top middle left, the chapter title and subtitle on the top right part. The table of contents of the chapter is on the left. The copyright and the contents display area are put together in the middle of the reading part. Okay, then we can also improve a little bit more. We added a couple of other sections in the web display. For the foundation, we have a donation button. We can introduce the book table of contents to be able to let us jump between chapters. We put a search mechanism to find the terms inside the book. This imprint is the legal imprint that we use for the document foundation, and we have a spare section here that is not used on the moment, but we can of course introduce other links interesting, for example, download the PDF and such and such. So this is the display that we are using at the moment, and let's see how it shows. Okay, so this is the layout at the moment. You recognize here the table of contents on the left. On the left, we have the logo, the guide name, the chapter name, the button for a donation. This is the book table of contents, the search section, and the imprint, and this empty so far area that we leave for further developments. So this is the layout that we are achieving. Everything is scrollable, you can read it, and this is what we have so far for most of the books that we have available. Okay, the road to this output has a strategy. The golden rule that we are following is that the contents must not be changed since the publication of the guide. Even if we get a typo, we may or may not fix the typo. So we just don't want to go through the content of the book. We want to have a a faithful copy of the publication. Of course, there is a lot of manual work, but we search for an automatic export with minimal manual interference, which is not always possible because there is a lot of corner case. A text document is rather difficult to handle with scripts inside LibreOffice. Whoever has already tried to detect or change something inside the text document knows the large amount of lines of code that you need to write in order to just to position the cursor on the text that you want to change. It's rather complicated. What it is a consequence by the fact that the LibreOffice as a word processor is a flexible tool for text editing, and it allows a lot of freedom. So you can have several ways to get the same output, right? For example, you have direct formatting, manual object position, numbering styles misuse, and this, for example, is one of the things I find. The list that we use, list one, the list style, name it list one, is very often mimicked by having the list, the paragraph style body text with the bullets. Of course, when you look at the PDF, the result is 1, the ODT result is 1, but when you put that into another HTML approach, then it messes completely, okay? The difference between the two styles is going to show up very quickly. So part of the work is to carry some of the change in ODT under LibreOffice. Some of the things that we can be done inside LibreOffice. For example, cleanup of lists, clean up the direct formatting. And the second part, we have to do it in HTML. It's not possible to have the two in one step. It has to be into a step. The pure export to HTML is not enough because, like I said, we need to introduce things. We can export to HTML, but I decided to use this extension, named Writer to LaTeX or Writer to HTML, that creates a more linear and more manageable web output. Okay, so we have the extension. The extension is public. I'm going to talk about a little bit more. The first step on the cleanup of the ODT is to eliminate all the direct formatting. This is a best practice that all the authors and the translators are already aware that we cannot use direct formatting. Direct formatting is not good for document maintenance. Cleanup of fake lists, like I said, the body text and bullets is the same as the list one, visually identical, but internally this is completely different. The image anchoring has to change to place the images as character, which also has been done. Sometimes the removal of unofficial styles that are styles that are not part of the chapter templates. Some of these styles were either introduced by some spurious copy and paste that you bring from another source, or often we have also what I call the legacy styles. Styles that were developed for the OpenOffice times, because the chapters and the books came from the OpenOffice times. And sometimes you see spurious styles floating around, and it's time to clean up all these things, right? The step 2 is to do now changes on the ODF file, and these changes has to be downstream. It cannot be put upstream because it's going to change the format and the layout of the document, so it's not possible to do this upstream. So for example, in terms of one of the examples is to swap the image caption. Image caption for a book is very well accepted to be below the image, but on browsers it's better to put on top of images because of the scrolling direction. Right? Change the cross-reference. For example, if we have a figure 10, where 10 is the field, we change to figure 10 using numbering and category. So we have more space to click on the link. Okay, we have to change some of the writings when you have a reference of an image. On page 23, there is no paging in terms of browsers, so we change that to instead of on page 23, we put above or below. Right, so this is one of the approach, and also we have to change the chapter template. We crafted some different styles with the same name, exactly the same name, but different layouts. So this new template handles the mismatch between ODT richness and the HTML limitations. ODT is much richer in terms of resources than HTML, so we have to some form of restrict all this richness. For example, notes, tips, and warning are not very well handled in HTML because they have graphic bullets. This is bad for the export. The tab character is not very well understood inside HTML. It doesn't make much sense for them. And sometimes we do reformatting of the paragraph styles for the title, guide name, and headings. So these activities are very necessary. So we export to HTML. You can use the export of XHTML inside LibreOffice, but you get a dense and cluttered markup, and you have to then do the post-processing to fix that. Or you use this writer to HTML extension, which is available in the extension website of LibreOffice. It gives you a cleaner export and some interesting settings that we decided not to use. So we just try to use our best, all the formatting generated inside the ODT file. The problem is that this extension seems not to be maintained anymore, but so far no problems. The post-processing is needed, so the export of HTML does not handle modern web techniques. So for example, we wanted to introduce the CSS grids, some techniques used for responsiveness of the formats, to handle better the navigation, so hyperlink, scrolling, and things like that. So we had to add just one JavaScript entry on the output and one CSS entry to the output. And then we work on the CSS and the JavaScript to reposition all the sections as we explained it before. So this post-processing is handled by a script. It takes less than a fraction of a second, and it reposition everything for you. Okay, so the results is that we have all the sections displayed. For example, the support LibreOffice, this book table of contents is handled under JavaScript. The layout here is a grid that is handled by the CSS. So, and you may recognize that we try to preserve most of the formats of the chapter. Okay. The bookshelf is available right now. You can look at the website books.libreoffice.org. It's a very simple HTML static. There is absolutely no server-side script. It's only JavaScript, CSS, and HTML. You can clone in your premises if you want to install in your intranet. Just clone this URL and everything is going to be available. You just point your website inside your to the root of this file of this folder, and then everything is going to be available for you. And you can install in your school, your company, your library, your college, your home, and the idea is to make it available as much as possible for everybody, right? So this is the bookshelf. You see that we have already transformed quite a lot of these guides. Everything is, like I said, static. You can, of course, develop for English and Portuguese. And what we have is if you click on one of the guides, and then you have this layout, and you can just click here to download ODF or download buy a printed copy or download PDF or read online if you want, and then you see the pages that we have displayed. Right. So my special thanks to Tulio Macedo for the CSS grid. Tulio works in Brasilia, capital of Brazil, and he's skilled in terms of web design and intranets for the government that he works for. And he has been quite a lot of give us quite a lot of nice work on this grid. And this is the idea. So we have now 5 minutes, and I would like to thank you for taking your time to watch this presentation. Like I said, my interest, and I think it's important, my vision, may I say, is that we should have as much as possible documentation on LibreOffice available for the people, and for any kind of format, PDF, ODF, web. And there is a lot of work to do. There is, I have a vision that the web, what I call the web outputs, is in an important aspect of LibreOffice that is underdeveloped, that can be eventually worked in the future. And that's it. Thank you for your time. I'm ready for questions.
Thank you. Yeah. So one question in the chat. Are there different web page layout in case of phone or tablets? Please checking. Okay, I'm paste on the GG chat.
Yes, there are some which we use the technique on CSS for the grids. So if you modify the size of your browser, or if you try to use in a tablet, you will see a different layouts. Still, we have quite some work to do on that to perfect, but the idea is to make it the more automated possible, without trying to avoid most of manual interference. And this, so you can try, if you access the bookshelf, you will see probably, let me just try to show you. This is the, I want to try to show my screen again. Yes. Okay, so you see the bookshelf here. If I redimension, then probably you will see that it's going to be reformatted, and you can write and read online in different shapes. So take here, and it's going to be displayed differently. Okay, so this is the grid that we use, and this is what we try to make available for different formats. Hope I was able to answer you.
Okay, so thank you. And
Any other questions?
okay, my question. So, your bookshelf site, how I don't so reach that bookshelf site. So how now publishing or not? Sorry, no. My question is so bookshelf site is now ready or not ready?
It is available. It is work in progress. It is totally hosted inside TDF, and it is on Gerrit. So if you want to, for example, if you want to add the Japanese book, you can go directly into Gerrit and upload in Gerrit your translation, your layouts, and all the documentation you want. Okay, it's very simple HTML. You clone it on your local machine, and you work like you do the changes and uploads, and then you commit in Gerrit, and this is going to be available for everybody. And what I do is that the bookshelf I show to you is a copy of the Gerrit part, and with so it's a separate copy, but it's a mirror of the Gerrit. Okay, so if you upload something right now, I will issue a command to copy the new things into the live website. So I'm eager, Shinji, to upload the Japanese books. I want to upload the Japanese books.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, yeah. I will check.
Yeah.
Okay, so Narihiko follow the question. So paste. Oh, thank you. So please so checking the chat.
Oh yes. Why is it? Well, it is redirected. Okay, I see. This perhaps because your browser is asking. It is something I need to see with the infrastructure people. Why is it directing to documentation? Maybe we need to break this redirection.
Okay.
So maybe putting a slash at the end could improve that. I can send you. I will look at this possibility to have these things working for you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So thank you very much, and see you tomorrow on the next
Yeah, thank
the
you.
third day.
Olivier.
Yeah.
Thank you, Olivier.
Bye-
So great presentation.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay. And so room 3, today, so content is finished. And see you tomorrow.
So bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.